How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. Happy New Year to everyone. The Bengals enter the 2024 year eliminated from the playoffs this season after dropping a game to the Kansas City Chiefs 25-17. A game the Bengals were up by 2 possessions in. A game where the Bengals started out, hey, credit Zach Taylor here. They were up and they was moving the football up and down the field against the Kansas City Chiefs defense that was ranked second in the league in yards allowed per game this season. They've been the backbone of a usually potent Kansas City Chiefs offense this year. It has been a defensive dominated Kansas City Chiefs team, and the Bengals are finding ways to move the football up and down the field. You gotta give Zach Taylor and gotta give this team some credit to figure out a way to, they weren't just trying to utilize the screen game as they were in games past. Surprisingly, they kind of went away from it a bit, but still seen a few in this game. But there was a team that also was just trying to figure out the short game in general, getting rid of the ball quickly in general. And it was a great game plan, I thought, going into it, because he was dink and dunking a Kansas City Chiefs team. It resulted in them just dominating the time of possession game in the first half, which was something I thought this team needed desperately to help a defense that's been kind of struggling throughout the year. So you say, hey, keep this defense off the field, keep the Chiefs defense on the field, a team that's been dominant, wear them down. And we kind of seen that, trickle down effect in the first half of this game. And then unfortunately, the second half comes around where Bengals defense struggles to get off the field. The defense of the Chiefs gets some time to rest. We've seen them kind of play stronger and stronger throughout the game. They kind of closed out the game late in this one. And it did feel like, hey, as much as, we see a lot of talk, you got a day to sit on it, you got a day to think about it. What's going on with this Bengals defense? Their linebackers had 2 tackles, 2 solo tackles, that is, all game. They got to stop Pacheco at some sort of way. I mean, he had 17 yards per carry heading at halftime. He had 7 yards per carry to end the game, 130 rushing yards. You got to find a way to slow him down. Sure, absolutely. But at the end of the day, this is a Bengals defense that held the Chiefs to, 5 straight field goals? You hold them to all those field goals, and at the end of the day, this is a Bengals defense that does what they've done for the past 3 years now, which is keep your football team in the game. You had a chance to go down the field and get a game or a game-tying drive. Really had a chance for a game-winning drive the drive before. Bengals couldn't capitalize it. I think this is one of those situations you have to respect Steve Spagnuolo and this Kansas City Chiefs defense. And if you have your franchise quarterback, you have one of the best in the league back there, I'm sure they do find a way to go up and down his field. But you have Jake Browning, who's still a really good backup quarterback, but he's going to see some stuff from these DCs that, he hasn't seen before. They're going to figure out ways to slow this Bengals offense down. And I think we've seen that. And again, I fully believe you. So you got a Joe Burrow and you go up and down that field. Well, maybe. I mean, I take that back because, geez, the refs were throwing anything to possibly. That was, whew. Bengals got to find a way to get out the field and slow down that run game. Bengals got to find a way to move the football down the field in the second half. But boy, I don't know what that officiating was. It felt like in the first half, it was, hey, we're going to let them play unless it's something egregious. And then the second half comes around and, boy, anything the Bengals did wrong, there was a flag. It felt like there was a Bengals flag every other play until the Chiefs took that lead. Meanwhile, the Chiefs didn't get flagged for, pushing Hudson in the back. They didn't get flagged for the roughing the passer against Joe Burrow. They didn't get flagged for the offsides late in that game. They didn't flag that blocking the back on that kick return. I mean, they was missing a lot. And a lot of stuff that felt obvious. And of course that sends some waves, that sends some nerves, because you're late in a football game. And it wasn't until late in the football game where they was missing all of this obvious stuff. And you see, when's the last time you seen a defensive holding by a defensive lineman? It didn't look the best going back on it, but just to think how many times that's probably happened with defensive linemen. I'd never seen that call. I don't remember the last time I seen that called. We seen Kappa go off the field holding his eye. I speculated on this saying, hey, well, how often do you miss 3 or 4 plays in a football game from an eye injury from a speck of dirt? Did he stab him? Did he poke himself in the eye? Because last I checked, hands to the face was a penalty. And I think the eyeball is part of the face. I would have liked to see the replay. That's all I'm saying. But I thought that was one of the biggest turnarounds in officiating, that everything just wasn't in it. And it could have just been, maybe we, as a fan, you overlook it and say maybe it was the Bengals just falling apart and the Chiefs really clutched down. But you find it hard to believe sometimes, because typically when they're playing loose like that and then they start calling it against one team, you got to call it both ways. But nonetheless, it was just, that's kind of what hurt the Bengals, that rough or that intentional grounding. They got together. That was another one. Like they was getting pushed behind the 8 ball there in that game. That, the intentional grounding, when they was moving the football down the field, they was starting to make some progress. They just picked up that long 4th and 18. and you don't call it, you huddle up for 5 minutes, and then you throw the flag and say, you know what, that was intentional grounding. Like, no, there was a running back right there. When every person on the planet says it's not an intentional grounding, but those officials, they messed that up. And that is a game-changing call, because you put it, instead of being 1st and 10, instead of being 2nd and 10, now it's 2nd and 20. That's tough. That's tough to swallow when your season's on the line. Even Gene thought so. And Gene and CBS be all over Kansas City, and they say, that's not it. Those are tough ones to swallow. At the end of the day, I joked about it and said you kind of game plan now when you're playing the Chiefs. At the end of the day, though, you would have just liked to see the Bengals kind of extend their lead earlier, continue to pounce earlier, not get to that point where they had to move the football down the field late like that. And, the situation might have been different. Nonetheless, they played a heck of a football game. To go against the Kansas City Chiefs team, you kind of expected they was going to put up some yards. It was the big play, and that's the thing. You want to see this Bengals defense. They kept them in the football game. That's the best thing you could have asked for. Be nice to see them kind of clean up the deep game next season, clean up the deep play game. That was something they did so well with Vaughn and Jesse Bates back there. And we see some of their safeties now kind of taking some bad routes, kind of leaving these guys open down the field, them big plays. And they're young. They're really young players where they're going to grow and they're going to get better. That's the one thing you really want to see this Bengals defense clean up on, and the run game. But that, again, safeties probably help a bit with that as well. Linebacker play improve a little bit. Those guys, they can step up and play. And that's the big takeaway defensively out of this Kansas City game. Well, even a bigger takeaway when you really think about it, I said that was one of the best starts the Bengals had against the Chiefs in the last 5 times they've met. And that's a really good sign to say Zach Taylor's figuring out a way to game plan, figuring out a way to get this offense rolling early against the Chiefs where they don't have to play from behind. They're in a position late in the game, they just have to hold the lead. They can just put their foot on the gas late, and something we know Joe Burrow can do. That's a great sign for the Bengals in the future. Figuring things out against the Chiefs, holding them to field goal, still in the second half, Lou still doing what he does, which is say besides that big play, and the defense getting flagged for every other play they did in the second half, and those two that touchdown drive, it was they held them to all them field goals. They kept the Bengals within striking distance. They could have taken it to overtime if they go down that football field. And you got to appreciate that of what the coaching staff did game planning for this game. You got to feel really good about things going forward, because besides the Chiefs and a division, the Bengals have handled every other team in the NFL. It's really just been the Chiefs, and they played them well as well. I mean, they figured the division out. You say, hey, you feel really good about the Bengals, and you feel really good about the storyline of Joe Burrow coming back to Louisiana next year where the Super Bowl is held. Yeah, you do. Nonetheless, Bengals dropped this one. Looking forward to the draft. Looking forward to next season. See what the Bengals do against the Browns this week. 2 teams, not a lot to play for. Will we see both teams throw some backups in there? Or should just the Browns do it? We'll see. Love y'all's thoughts. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.